How do we know that the UN and all these people who are so concerned about climates don't give a damn? How can we tell? How can we tell all the noise made by our governments in the West or everywhere about the climate is only about ripping the people off, and it's really nothing to do with the environmental care or any empathy or real care for nature itself? It's all about money and control. We can tell by one single issue: it's plastic. Plastic is by far and away, and it's going to accumulate to become the biggest single issue on planet Earth that's going to destroy all life in the seas, or cause it to mutate, because as the plastic breaks down to finer and finer particles, it's going to become a sort of a very serious pollution in the end. Although the oceans are really, really massive, if it carries on the way it is, then obviously it's going to be a sort of plastic soup, and that's going to affect obviously affecting all sort of life forms, and therefore human itself. So the greater danger to humanity at the moment is plastic far, far and above climates. Climates we can adapt to and engineer solutions to, water and sustainability and stuff like that. But plastics seem to be something, there's a lot of laboratories and people involved in doing experiments to sort of recycle plastic, making up for the use of it, and trying looking for other plastics. But there needs to be a universal solution throughout the world where everyone everyone understands their role in dealing with the plastic that they consume or use or in wrappers. Everyone wants to sort of blame someone else, like they want to blame the fossil fuel companies and all that for climate change and all that. It's not. It's the consumer themselves using the stuff. If it's just a market force, if you didn't use the stuff, then you can say, well, then they can start saying others are to blame and not you. You're exonerated from any guilt in that regard. But I digress. When it comes to plastic, which there ought to be a worldwide effort in this regard, especially led by the UN or some leading body, that there is not. It's deeply, deeply suspicious, and it's deeply troubling, and then also extremely sort of questions the whole ethics and integrity of the UN itself. If whether it's a body for universal peace and harmony, or just a body being taken over by people who want to use it to try and manipulate governments into becoming Marxist systems that the people obey, and that's all it seems to be all about. So, what can we do about plastics? One thing for certain, it's an individual problem. And then you go to countries like I went to Bali a few years ago, and it was a rubbish tip. This place called Bali, the Balinese, wherever it was, I went on this road trip up there, and there's a knee-deep in litter at one particular market town, knee-deep in litter, and that just makes its way into the sea, and everywhere you went, there's litter. I never went. Don't never want to go to Bali again. It's a filthy rubbish dump. Bali's a rubbish dump. And so all these countries that want to, and then developing countries that want to blame white man or the Western country for despoiling the world with climate change for causing that, are then themselves totally involved in chucking so much rubbish into the sea and it's killing the animal life. In other words, they're hypocrites. It's totally hypocritical to criticise the natural development of humans through their curiosity of the energy and powers that everyone enjoys through motor cars and everything you enjoy, even the plastics. You enjoy all the benefits of the plastics, right? Which is a part of the industrial development that people are attacking for causing climate change, but the very many people are attacking it for causing climate change are doing nothing whatsoever substantial in regards to dealing with plastic as a serious cost problem. And I think it needs to be dealt locally, regionally, and by country. And there needs to be a universal system Well, all plastics have a tax, a small tax, 1% of the cost of the item, and that is so. Therefore, it's scalable. If it's the people with less money pay less, people with more money pay more. There's 1% of something of each item to cool, and that's collected in an honesty system or an actual computer system or AI collects it, and that goes to some centralizing fund. Then that then allows industrial development. It finances the industrial development of means of dealing with plastic permanently, either through recycling it into building materials or bodies for motor cars or anything you can think of that can be moulded, that needs to be moulded to make a shape. Then plastics can be reused, of course. But because there's a massive abundance of plastics, and the problem is the supply chain already established, which is in the fossil fuel companies, they also supply the means to supply the plastic. So it's part of industrial processing. You've got oil, tar, rubber tires, and plastics and everything else from the industrial processing. Things we miss, and all the extinction rebellious people wearing rubber-soled shoes. I mean, they don't get it. They're part of the problem, not part of the solution. But they offer no solutions, and neither does anyone. Actually, there's some brave young people, a young man from Holland who's got these devices what stop plastic going into the sea. But what's to stop the people chucking plastic into the sea? What's stopping people? What prohibitions are there on people chucking plastic into the rivers? That's the question everyone needs to ask. Oh, look, we're just... And I think it's a politically correct problem when you can't say to people, look, don't rubbish, because don't drop litter, because they're saying, well, that might be racism. It's not racism. Rubbish doesn't have a race, and neither does littering. Anyone can litter. Anyone can pick up the litter. The fact that some societies have trash all over the markets, you see them on television, wherever they are, it doesn't matter where they are, it could be anywhere. Trash, knee-deeps and miles of plastic, because those places aren't organised between themselves or to deal with it, to put it into some sort of system. Now, there needs to be an industrial processing system, and it's a cost involves all of us. All of humanity must pay a tax or a plastic tax to begin to sort of, and that's money then, there's a lot of money there, that can be then used to create an industrial process that can be put in those countries that want income. You can use the plastic to create energy because it can be burnt, which might go against certain people who don't want CO2, but unless you take away a couple of coal-fired power stations or gas-fired power stations and replace them with plastic-fired power stations, and then you've got your equation sort of balancing out. But the thing is, you can then power these industrial processing systems, well then shrink the plastic down into and without burning it, without melting it, shrink it down into a much more solid pieces. And then you can create the energy with the plastic, but also you can create water out of the air using energy. And also you can supply the region with the energy from this place as well. So you can create cheap energy into a region using plastic. So it's all subsidised by the world paying the plastic tax. So therefore it helps the developing country create employment and develop its infrastructure, its health and education systems. So I'm saying it's best to make a benefit out of what is a problem, rather than just say, oh, it's an expensive problem and it's going to cost a lot to fix. No, it's not costing anything to fix, because if everyone gets simply used to paying for it at 1% or 2% of every item that's paid, it should be enough, and that's scalable, of course, and people in poor countries pay less and people in rich countries pay more, that percentage is more, because a dollar and a rupee are different. So 1% of a rupee is less than 1% of a dollar, but it's scalable, and it's fair and equal to everyone then. And that's equality. That's real equality. Economic equality is based in that understanding. Not anything the UN says, which has nothing to do with equality at all. It's about division. But I digress, but that's something that needs to be done with plastics. What you do when you shrink it, you can actually shrink it down, and then it becomes a sort of resource that can then be recycled, because it takes a lot less space. There's also other ways of disposing, which I'll describe in another video. There's another way to describe the disposing of some of the plastic permanently and forever. That needs to be understood. This thing's going to get worse. The problem is not going to go away. It's going to get worse and worse and worse. And although there might be fine people doing some solutions, and they might be able to recycle some of it, the actual amount of it is impossible to recycle into road base or whatever you can do with it, unless the whole world geared up to do that. But then it would affect the oil companies and their profits, and they control much of the financial situation and how the governments think about their finances, etc. So they control that part of it. Now, it's unfortunate. So you've got to find another solution what relieves them of the threat of competition. Now the oil companies don't want less of a threat of a competition, so create another system altogether what complements them. So the world works more harmoniously towards a solution in regards to plastics. Thank you.